Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Tuesday, everybody. For those who celebrated, I hope you had a very Merry Christmas, spent time with your friends and family. I've actually come back to New Zealand. I'm currently filming this in New Zealand, where I'm staying for the next week or so. I came back to surprise my family after several years of not being able to return for Christmas. While I am here enjoying a warm New Zealand summer, the Northern Hemisphere weathers an especially cold winter, with China continuing to see record-breaking temperatures. Some areas of the northeast of the country have experienced cold hitting minus 40 degrees Celsius and Fahrenheit. Beijing endured 9 consecutive days of temperatures below minus 10 degrees Celsius, 14 degrees Fahrenheit. As of Sunday, the capital had recorded more than 300 hours of below freezing temperatures since the 11th of December. The most for the month since records began in 1951. This cold snap is putting huge strains on resources across the country, especially in the north. Several cities in the central Chinese province of Henan have sought help from the central government as they now face a winter heating supply crisis. On Sunday, state media reported that the city of Jiaozhou, 3.5 million people, had lost much of its heat supply after its heating boilers broke down. 2 other cities in the province have suspended heat supply to parts of the city in order to prioritize residential usage. Temperatures in this region hit a low of minus 15 degrees Celsius, 5 degrees Fahrenheit over the weekend. Okay, now for the main stories, and we begin with the economy. On Monday, China approved 105 domestic games, a sign that Beijing is softening its positioning towards the massive video gaming industry. China is the largest market for games in the world, after new rules published last Friday spooked markets, resulting in an $80 billion rout. Analysts have been discussing the specifics of the rules over the last few days. Quote, "The latest events reflect the government's desire for a larger, more diverse gaming landscape with innovative content of a higher quality, but one without excessive monetization or pay-to-win games. The government prefers publishers to earn profits through fair practices and product innovation rather than deepening monetization strategies." End quote. We know that this particular observation comes from a leader within the industry in China and therefore has likely softened some of their commentary. Titles approved on Monday included those operated by Tencent Holdings Limited and NetEase Inc., China's 2 leading game publishers, who bled tens of billions of dollars last Friday. Over the weekend, Beijing said that it will listen to feedback from stakeholders, including companies and players, to improve the new proposed rules. As we discussed in Saturday's video, what shocked investors the most were not the details of the rules per se, but the signal it sent. That is, that the industry may be in for another crackdown. It also, once again, reminded investors that with the current administration, regulators can hit industries pretty hard and with little warning. The brutal technology sector crackdown of 2021 is still very much fresh in many minds. Next up for the economy. Chinese flag carrier Air China Limited has announced plans to buy 17 homegrown C919 jets to expand its fleet. The planes, all developed by China-based Commercial Aircraft Corp of China Limited, COMAC, include 6 C919 single-aisle planes and 11 ARJ-21 regional jets. They are expected to be delivered between 2024 and 2025. According to a company filing from last Friday, the introduction of the 17 aircraft will help Air China reduce fuel consumption and maintenance costs by replacing some of its older planes, while expanding its fleet and increasing route revenue. Air China swung to net profit of 4.24 billion yuan in the third quarter of this year from a net loss of 8.67 billion yuan a year ago. All main Chinese carriers were smashed during the zero-COVID years, relying on government support to keep from going under. Even now, international travel is still struggling to return to pre-pandemic levels, with passenger turnover and traffic on international flights of domestic airlines in November reaching only 50% of 2019 levels. The narrow-body Chinese-made C919 is designed to take on the Boeing 737 and Airbus 320 to break up the pair's duopoly, at least in China. COMAC is also developing a high-altitude version of its jet. At a Civil Aviation Administration of China meeting last week, the general manager of COMAC appealed for more government support, such as incentives to airlines and airports. In May, the C919 made its maiden commercial flight from Shanghai to Beijing. China Eastern is the C919's launch customer and largest buyer, with more than 100 jets on order. Next up, Hong Kong and TikTok. I hope you're enjoying today's episode. If you're getting some value from this episode, I only have one ask. That is to like and subscribe. This is the primary way in which this channel grows. The main way it is shown to new people is if the algorithm is happy. For anyone who wants to help keep the channel financially sustainable, which allows me to continue doing this every day, open and free for all, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. My commitment has been a channel open to all that is reliant primarily on subscriber support rather than corporate sponsorship. And with your assistance, I know I can keep it that way. Thank you so much, everybody, for the ongoing support. Let's continue. One more economic update. Chinese financial media outlet Caixin reports that Hong Kong completed its last government land auction last week at a lower than expected price, bringing the city authorities' land sales revenue this year to a 10-year low. The Hong Kong Lands Department, the outlet reports, awarded a 19,000 square metre parcel on Lantau Island to the sole bidder, Sino Group, for 203.8 million Hong Kong dollars, 26 million US dollars. In the final land tender. This represents a price of approximately 2,500 Hong Kong dollars per square foot, 319 US dollars, which is about 80% lower than the land price paid 5 years ago in the same area and, quote, marks an 8-year low for residential land prices in Hong Kong, end quote. The final deal brought the Hong Kong government's total land sales revenue to 13.4 billion Hong Kong dollars this year, down 53% from 2022, the lowest since 2010. Hong Kong-based South China Morning Post reported last week that Hong Kong's once lucrative land market is no longer in a very good place, as the territory faces, quote, economic slowdown and high interest rates, end quote. Caixin, in a separate article, reports that Hong Kong put up 8 parcels for sale this year, with auctions for 3 plots failing entirely, warning, quote, weak land sales have piled pressure on the government, end quote. PricewaterhouseCoopers estimates that Hong Kong will record a deficit of 110 billion Hong Kong dollars in the 2023-24 fiscal year. While common in the mainland, this is a concerning development for Hong Kong. And we end today's video with an update on TikTok, the popular Chinese app, which continues to win few friends in Washington. According to a report published last Thursday by Network Contagion Research Institute at Rutgers University, topics often suppressed by Beijing within the mainland appear to be unusually underrepresented on TikTok compared with Instagram. TikTok is owned by ByteDance, a PRC company, although it's worth noting that 60% of ByteDance's shareholders are international, that is, outside of mainland China. The report analyzed the volume of posts with certain hashtags on TikTok and Instagram, which has hundreds of millions more users. The report concludes that, quote, substantial differences in hashtag ratios raise concerns about TikTok's impartiality. Given the research above, we assess a strong possibility that content on TikTok is either amplified or suppressed based on its alignment with the interests of the Chinese government. Future research should aim towards a more comprehensive analysis to determine the potential influence of TikTok on popular public narratives. This research should determine if and how TikTok might be utilized for furthering national, regional, or international objectives of the Chinese government. Should such research determine that TikTok users exhibit attitudes and assessments of world events aligned with the information distortions that we have discovered, democracies will need to consider appropriate countermeasures to better protect information integrity and mitigate potential real-world impacts. End quote. The report is getting a lot of attention in legacy media. US-based The New York Times, citing the report, writes, for example, quote, "For popular pop culture and politics terms like hashtag Taylor Swift and hashtag Trump, the researchers found roughly 2 Instagram posts for every one on TikTok, but that ratio jumped to more than 8-1 for hashtag Uyghur, 30-1 for hashtag Tibet, 57-1 for hashtag Tiananmen Square, and 174-1 for hashtag Hong Kong protest." End quote. TikTok strongly rejects the conclusions of the report, with a spokesman for the company expressing last week, quote, "The report uses a flawed methodology to reach a predetermined false conclusion. Anyone familiar with how the platform works can see for themselves the content they refer to is widely available, and claims of suppression are baseless." End quote. TikTok has been in Washington's crosshairs for some time. The bipartisan China House Committee recently requested a classified briefing from the FBI that would detail its efforts involving ByteDance, TikTok, and potential surveillance. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a wonderful Tuesday, and I will see you all tomorrow.